Welcome into Action Island presented by FanDuel. Happy Week 11 Monday Night Football, joined by Charlie DeCirco, Anthony DeBundo, Grant Nieper. I'm Megan Payton. It's the rematch of the Super Bowl. Chiefs at Arrowhead Stadium taking on the Eagles. Kansas City -2.5. Totals at 45.5. And hey, if you haven't found this game fun enough already, it's time to build a same game parlay. Action Island is presented by FanDuel. Bet $5 on any money line and get $150 in bonus bets if your team wins. Plus, all customers get a profit boost every day. This is for new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Welcome in, fellas. We've got a fun one tonight. Everyone's talking about it. Lots of action tonight. Darren Ravel is going to join us here in a bit, go us over some of the market reports, what people are betting on. If you stumbled upon us and are new to Action Island, it's the place to be for same-game parlays. Here's how it's going to work. Charlie, Anthony, and Grant are going to present two bets to us. They're going to vote one on, vote one off. I can't vote this one because it's AFC West, but we'll do a coin flip if we have to, if there's a tiebreaker. And at the end, you'll have a three-leg same-game parlay that you can tail on FanDuel. A lot of people also like to create their own. A lot of great bets. You'll have plenty to choose from. Charlie's going to start us off. It's a fun one. Two of the best quarterbacks in the league. The rematch of the Super Bowl. Where can we look at for our first leg?
Yeah, two of the best quarterbacks in the league, so it's only right to go with their running back here to start this show. Taylor Swift's not in attendance, but someone is. DeAndre Swift, over 60.5 rushing yards here. The Kansas City Chief defense, they are elite against the pass, which is something I think that a lot of us were not ready for this season, but they are. And where they're weak and their Achilles heel comes in that run game. 21st in DVOA against the run, top 5 against the pass. Running backs such as Raheem Mostert, Javonte Williams, even Breece Hall have put up big numbers as far as yards per carries go. And I think this is a game that Philly really knows that they have to ground and pound to beat this Chiefs team and that they want to keep the ball out of Mahomes' hands. So what better way than to use their offensive line that is elite when it comes to run blocking, second per PFF's grading tools. So I think this is a game where DeAndre Swift gets fed. I think it's a close game, so there will be plenty of carries. Swift, he's had 15 plus in each of his last 3 games when it comes to carries, has really cemented himself as that RB1 in Philadelphia. So just a game that I think that favors Philly kind of running the ball, and one where they have the ability to against a weak Kansas City rush defense, especially with Jalen Hurts. No one really knows about his knee. He did have the bye week, but if he is hindered in any way, it's just even more carries to go Swift's way. So over 60.5 rushing yards to start things off.
DeAndre Swift is the only Swift that matters in this game. He's been crushing it. Honestly, you look at the beginning of the year and he really earned that number 1 role as running back. He's got that consistent carries now. He's got good tempo, and he's going up against a Chiefs team that, their Achilles heel is kind of their run defense. They're averaging 112 rushing yards per game allowed, and that's where DeAndre Swift's going to be able to shine. We mentioned the weather a little bit here. It's going to be a little bit rainy, going to be wet. It's going to be a bit harder than you might think. It's not going to be exactly like the Super Bowl where they're just chucking things down the field. I think DeAndre Swift's going to have a pretty big role in tonight's game. So over 60.5 is the first option. Where else can we look at in this one?
Yeah, so, Taylor Swift's not going to be in attendance, so that means no Travis Kelce for me. That means I'm going Noah Gray over 14.5 receiving yards. The Eagles are atrocious against the tight end position. They're 32nd in DVOA when it comes to defending tight ends. They've had injuries in the linebacker corp that's really made them thin there. And so I think that there's a way to kind of target this passing game of the Chiefs, and it's through Noah Gray. Travis Kelce, obviously going to be everyone's bread and butter. Everyone's going to want to bet him. But I think that we've seen over the time that other defenses are focusing on stopping him. And what does that mean? It means Noah Gray is going to have plenty of opportunities to really shine. You look at him, he's quietly been super consistent.
Yeah.
In 9 games this season, he's had 20 plus receiving yards in 6 of them. That's 67%. Averages about 2 receptions per game, lines up on the snap count between 50 and 60%. The Chiefs are top 5 when it comes to 2 tight end sets personnel wise. So this is a great matchup against him. Jake Ferguson went for 91. Logan Thomas for 44. The New England duo of Gesicki and Hunter Henry, 8 for 92 against this Eagles defense. So we saw, Josh Oliver go for 47 receiving yards last night when everyone thought Hawkinson was going to get all the load. I think this is another spot for Noah Gray to shine. So a low number here, really low. So over 14.5 receiving yards. I love this play too.
Noah Gray's got great potential. While everyone's looking at Travis Kelce, this is a perfect spot to buy in here. He's really good at reading defenses. He's a smart player. He can break through tackles, and the consistency is absolutely the key here. He's averaging 2 to 3 receptions per game, big chunks, 10 yards per reception, and 14.5. You'd assume that he'd be able to get 3 receptions, which would go way over this number. Plus, he's playing the Eagles team that's giving up a ton of yards to tight ends. 2 options to start us off for our Super Bowl rematch. First leg, go with DeAndre Swift over 60.5 rushing yards, or go with the sleeper tight end for the Chiefs. That's Noah Gray over 14.5 receiving yards. Anthony, Grant, start voting. Are we going Swifty or are we going Noah Gray? 3, 2, 1, boys. What are you voting on? Oh, come on. Already we got to go to the tiebreaker. Anthony says Noah Gray. Grant says DeAndre Swift. I can't vote. So let's go to the Action Island coin flip. Swift over 60.5 rushing yards. That's what it's going to be. He's crushing it. Honestly, you look at what he's been able to do to this Phillies offense. It's probably, to me, the most impressive thing about the Eagles offense this season and what they've been able to do to just kind of take it to the next level. Think about being in the Super Bowl last season. It's like, all right, well, what do we need to do? They get rid of Miles Sanders. They bring in Kenneth Gainwell. They think that he's going to be their top guy. And then they're like, wait, we could go get DeAndre Swift. He's really proven himself. Over 60.5 is the first option. Anthony, what were your thoughts with this one? Oh,
I did bet the Chiefs tonight, -2.5. So I'm expecting a more favorable game state for Kansas City generally. And that would lead to the Eagles having to pass the ball more. I think, it's interesting too, the more things change, the more things stay the same. This was the same thing we said going into the Super Bowl last year, which was that the Eagles had a huge advantage in the trench being able to run the ball. Steve Spagnuolo basically dared Jalen Hurts to beat them. He stacked the box, took away the run game, and game. So I do wonder, with the conditions being as they are, if Kansas City doesn't, kind of lock in to shut down the run and slow down the Eagles run game and force Hurts to beat them down the field again.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be kind of the mindset you'd think of. How can you control the game? Well, you got to control the run game, and it's going to be harder for the Chiefs because that's where they've been struggling. And they've got 2 backs that can do it. I mistakenly said they got Kenneth Gainwell's been there, and he was supposed to be that number 1 back, but DeAndre Swift came in and said, "Hey, hold up, I'm good, and I'm going to kind of take on that role." And the carries are definitely pointing to him being that RB1. Grant, what were your thoughts with this one, and why did you like Swift over Gray? Or you liked Gray over Swift. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was an easy choice. I bet DeAndre Swift over rushing yards. So obviously, the matchup is much better for the run. I mean, the Chiefs have been one of the best pass defense in the league. They're near the bottom in terms of run defense. I think the Eagles are going to try and run the ball a lot. The weather kind of favors the run with it being a little rainy. DeAndre Swift over the last 4 weeks really hasn't done great, but the volume has been great. 15 plus carries in 3 out of those 4 games. His yards per carry have been all the way down around 3.5 during that time. He's a career 4.5 yard rusher. He's a 4.5 yard per carry rusher this season. Everything kind of shows some positive regression, and the Chiefs are giving up the third most yards rushing on the season. So we're expecting 14 plus carries. The line's sitting at around 13.5 for rushing attempts for Swift here. So if we're expecting that volume, good matchup, everything kind of favors it. There's no reason to think he won't be getting 60 plus yards, 61 plus yards in this spot. So that's why I went with that one. I mean, outside of the fact that pretty much every single night game, a backup tight end does something. That's kind of the main reason to go with Gray. I didn't have any other thoughts on it, but I mean, I trust Charlie.
A lot of different ways. And this is perfect place to say, hey, build your own parlay, make it a 4-leg, do however you will. We're sticking with DeAndre Swift over 60.5 rushing yards for the first leg. Public's liking this, by the way. It was 59.5 like 30 minutes ago. So it's going up. Get on it before it goes even higher. Anthony, we got to go to our second leg. Keep adding on to this parlay. So where are you looking at for the second leg?
Yeah, so my first bet is going to be the first half over 22.5 minus 110. These two offenses have been really good on the script this season, generally speaking. Yeah. Kansas City has been one of the 5 best first quarter and first half offenses all year long. And I think the Chiefs, coming off of the bye week, are, with some extra time to prepare. I do expect Andy Reid to dial up some new wrinkles and new looks that maybe we haven't seen before. Maybe the Eagles haven't had on film, some tendency breakers to really surprise this Eagles defense. And so I do expect early offense in this game. If you go back to that matchup in the Super Bowl, both teams marched right down the field on those opening drives and had a ton of success. You go back to just about every good Eagles game this year. They've had their problems in the red zone converting those first drives into touchdowns, but they moving the ball on the script has been no issue for the Eagles, and they have had a good early offense this season. So I do think that Philadelphia scores early, Kansas City scores early. We maybe get a quick 7-7 here, and then I do expect the game to slow down. But as a result of that, I think the first half over is a potential look at 22.5. If you look at, how these defenses set up as well, especially with the Eagles, there's a very soft middle of the defense. We just talked about this with Noah Gray. The main reason I like the Gray prop, I do think there's a ton of holes in this Eagles secondary that can be exploited by Mahomes and this pass offense. It's been one of my, stronger anti-market opinions of the last probably year and a half, is that this Eagles secondary is very overrated against good passers. And I think it could be a problem in this one. So I do like the first half over 22.5.
They're both putting up points in the first half. Chiefs are second in first half points. The Eagles are 8th. Not to just compare everything to the Super Bowl, but the Super Bowl had 38 points in the first half. The line for the first half here is at 22.5. It feels like with 2 top tier offenses, 2 of the top elite quarterbacks in the league, you'd expect there to be some momentum early on. 22.5 feels like a good number. And I understand that that key number for primetime games as the total makes sense. But when you're just looking at the first half, 22.5, it feels like a pretty good line. What's the second option for this leg?
Yeah, one thing that I've been kind of surprised with all year has been the market sentiment toward the Eagles. And there's been a lot of under money, especially in their biggest games. You go back to the Miami game, moved multiple points to the under. The Dallas game moved multiple points to the under and then flew over. This game has really gone down. And I think one reason maybe that the market has had some love for these Eagles unders and has lowered these totals on them has been the second halves of games. That's why I'm going with the second half under 22.5 as my second pick for this game. I think regardless of game state, both offenses are very good at bleeding clock and having methodical long drives to take the air out of the football, so to speak, and to kind of slow the possessions. The Eagles defense this year has also been much improved in making adjustments from the first half to the second half. That was on display, I thought, really impressively in the Rams game, especially after Stafford carved them up in the first half. Desai, the new coordinator, made some adjustments, changed some tendencies, and really found some fixes to slow down, that Rams offense that was cooking in the first half. And the Chiefs have been the best second half under team all year. They're one of the worst offenses in the league in second half scoring. Some of it has been because they've been playing with the lead and kind of just like sitting on it and relying on their defense, which is better this year and is one of the main drivers of the second half unders, which are 9-0 this year. The other part of it has been, the offense has not been nearly as good once they've gotten off script. So they have not been as effective in the second half. And I think, like I said, regardless of game state, whether Philly's ahead and they're trying to run the ball and bleed the clock, whether Kansas City's ahead and they're just getting just enough to keep the chains moving against, like I said, an overrated Philly secondary that doesn't give up a ton of explosives. I do think the second half is where this game really slows down. And I like the under in the second half. So kind of, a reverse correlation here. First half, I like offense. Second half, I think defenses settle in and we get a grinder.
Anthony, this is a Nick Giffen Action Island special. And last time he did this, both cash. So I'm all for a first half over and a second half under. It really correlates not just with how these two teams play, but how the primetime games have been going. The primetime unders are at an enormous rate going under. So you like it to say, hey, they're going to start off strong and then, kind of slow things down. By the way, Kansas City is last in second half points. Eagles are around like 10. Either way, it absolutely matches. And if Nick's watching right now, I know he loves this. All right, 2 options for you guys to choose from: first half over or second half under. And you people watching at home, maybe throw them both in, because I like the way that this all correlates. Grant, Charlie, let's vote. Points or no points? First half, second half, Charlie, Grant, where are we looking? Second half under. Look at this. Look at the beautiful drawing, Charlie. I like it. So you're saying field goals then? Is that what you're looking at? No touchdowns, just field goals?
Well, I missed field goals. He's missing that one wide left.
Oh, was that wide left?
Yeah, maybe a little bit of a foreshadowing of what's going to happen when we need the second half under to cash.
I like that.
It's just one of those games that I think Anthony said, right? Like, Patrick Mahomes, what is he known for? Long, methodical drives and, wasting clock. And against the Jets, that was what they were able to do to hold on to that game that seemed like it was slipping. He comes in, he leads an extremely long drive and ends the game on the 1 yard line. And that's how it ends. And it goes under. So, and then vice versa, the Eagles, if they're going to be up, they're one of the best run offenses, as we've talked about with Swift. So they're just going to run the ball. Hurts, his mobility also helps. They're able to push anywhere within 4th and 2 and less. So just continuing long drives. I think this is a great look. I'm a bit nervous of the first half over, just because I think we could even see defenses shine both times. But I love the second half under here. I think both quarterbacks are extremely dominant and their head coaches are extremely smart at really just generating long drives. So yeah, second half under.
There is no better play than the high leverage second half tush push when you have the under, because there's zero chance of explosiveness. It's going to give you a first down, and it's going to take 35 seconds off the clock automatically, maybe even a full minute if they have to do it twice.
100%. And it is worth noting, it's easy to compare the Super Bowl game. And that's why I keep bringing up kind of playing at Arrowhead this time of year. It's not like playing in Arizona. It's going to be colder. The temperature is going to be a little bit worse than it was even in February when you're playing, though, at State Farm Stadium. So it's going to be a different kind of game. So we're not going to get to see probably that, high scoring 50 plus points like we did in the Super Bowl. Grant, you like the second half under as well. What were your thoughts here?
I mean, basically everything is that. I like the under the game. Chiefs are much worse than the second half. Yeah. And regardless of which team is ahead, they're going to try and run the clock out as much as possible. It's that simple. I mean, we've seen it so many times with the Eagles so far this season, where they're up and they will have an 8-9 minute drive near the end of the game, just rush. So, I mean, it's pretty simple.
22.5 under. I mean, I'd like to know just that number alone. What is that hitting in primetime games? Guessing pretty significant to the under. All right, we've got our 2 first legs. It's DeAndre Swift over 60.5. Second half under 22.5. Grant, we got to get a third leg. Where are we looking?
All right, so first part, we're going with A.J. Brown under 84.5 receiving yards. Now you look at his game log and you think that this is an absolutely ridiculous bet, because he's been putting up 120, 130, 140, 175 receiving yards pretty much every single week. But this is a tough matchup. It really favors the ground game for the Eagles. Chiefs, one of the best defenses in the passing game in the league. Rushing defense, not great. A.J. Brown can put up a big game, but we've seen good wide receivers go and put up duds. Tyreek Hill last week, 62 yards. Both times Judy and Sutton faced 50 or less yards. Keenan Allen 55. Jefferson got injured, got 28, but even Addison only had 60. Garrett Wilson 60. DJ Moore 41. St. Brown 71. Every major wide receiver, which they faced some of the best in the league, has hit the under at this number going up against the Chiefs this season. The only two that have actually beat that, strangely enough, Christian Kirk. That's not horribly surprising. And I think it was a Chargers wide receiver not named Keenan Allen. Right. So I'm not, they scheme towards the wide receiver one. They'll try and shut down A.J. Brown, and they're going to be running the ball a decent amount, especially with their concerns. This line's just too high, even though he's been incredible lately. This is not the spot.
Steve Spagnuolo is one of the best defensive coordinators in the league. And all week, all bye week, they've been trying to scheme and plan to shut down AJ Brown. The focal point is get him covered and do not let him attack. And honestly, I think that's why, 84.5 is the line. And people are probably like, oh, well, he had 6 games of over 125 receiving yards. Well, yeah, the Chiefs haven't allowed they've only allowed 2 players to go over 100 yards this year. That's because that's a credit and a testament to what Spagnuolo does to this defense and how difficult it is for top receivers to play against the Kansas City Chiefs. Under 84.5 for AJ Brown. Grant, what's the second option?
The second one, I'm rolling with the primetime under narrative, under 45.5. It's really simple. I get that we had just a massive scoring game in the Super Bowl last year. I get this is a rematch, but this is also not in a dome. This is over in Kansas City. The weather's not going to be great, mid-40s, going to be a little bit of wind, going to be raining all game long. This Chiefs defense is not the same defense we saw last year. They have been the top defense in the league. They're much worse versus the run, as I already stated, so they're probably going to eat up some clock over on the Philly side of things. The Chiefs are 7-2 on the under so far this season. Eagles, I think, sitting at 5-4, but this is not the same Chiefs offense we saw last year. They're middle of the pack. They're averaging close to points a game last. Now I think they're saying around 23, 21, something like that. So middle of the pack offense so far this season. Best defense in the league. I get the Eagles are great, but it's not like they're hitting over at a huge clip either. Going to be a grind in this game and eat up a lot of clock. I'm rolling with the under.
26 of 34 primetime games to the under. It's honestly just a bet you throw in the parlay at this point. That's how likely it is to cash. Under the game total at 45.5, or switch it up and go with AJ Brown under 84.5. Anthony, Charlie, time to vote on the third leg. All right, fellas, where are we going? 3, 2, 1. AJ Brown under. What is the score? AJ, I don't get it. What's the score?
It's a brown paper. It's supposed to be brown paper bag on the guy's head.
I thought it was SpongeBob. That's why I was thinking, like SpongeBob. Like, is there something? I'm like, Anthony's got the SpongeBob shirt on, but I didn't know what that was. I like it. And I like that you guys are in agreement. AJ Brown under 84.5. We got the second half under already in the parlay, so it's nice to switch it up a bit. Okay, Mr. SpongeBob, Anthony, what were you thinking with AJ over the total being under?
So I happen to live just outside of Philadelphia, and thus I get my good daily dose of Philly sports talk radio. I try not to listen too much, but it does give you a good inclination of kind of where the fan base is. And the entire discussion for the last month has been that AJ Brown is actually the best receiver in the NFL. They robbed the Titans, and all of that is true. But the fact that we're having these discussions and the fact that he's been so dominant in the last month is the classic time to sell high point. And so, with the success that the Chiefs have had defensively in their secondary, I do expect the Chiefs to blitz a bunch, but that will create some one-on-ones. Hopefully the Eagles don't hit the big play to Brown and they hit it to Smith instead, because that would be good for us. So yeah, I'm going to go with Brown under, and I'm just a little too hesitant on this Eagles defense to take the under 45.5, even with the weather. So I like the Brown under more. And I do think that we're at the peak of the market kind of on AJ Brown here as a receiver.
Yeah, reminder, he did hit those, 6 games in a row of over 125. And then what happened? He plays the Cowboys, has 66 yards. Now they've had a bye week. It feels a little too premature to expect him to go right back to those 100+ yard games that he was having prior. All right, Charlie, like the Brown bag, like the AJ Brown under. What were your thoughts on this instead of the game total?
Yeah, I feel like I'm in total agreement with Grant on this. Just the matchup favors the run, and DeAndre Swift's going to get the ball a lot. And I think that, I tend to think the Eagles might be a little bit undervalued here. So if they're going to be running the ball and having success, then that means that they won't be passing as much. If a guy like Tyreek Hill can't go for 85+ receiving yards against this Chiefs defense, that is incredible. I'm not sure AJ Brown's going to be able to. So yeah, just think I think, like Anthony said, I think the market's gotten way too high on AJ Brown now. It's the top of the market, so it's a good time to sell on wide receiver 1 out in Philly.
Only 2 players this year have had 100 or more receiving yards against the Kansas City Chiefs. Can AJ Brown be the third? We're putting no in this parlay. We'll recap the parlay, tell you the payout on FanDuel Sportsbook. First, we got to check in with Darren Ravel, see what people are betting on. Darren, how are you? What's going on this Monday night?
the obvious top props are Travis Kelce. And no, I am not going to make some Taylor Swift song reference because we are all tapped out on that. So the first one is Travis Kelce anytime touchdown. That's coming in at -125. Then there's Travis Kelce to score the first touchdown at +550. And then finally, a Jalen Hurts prop. The over 8.5 rushing attempts is -130. And no, legal sports books can still not do anything with Taylor because it doesn't happen on the field of play. And I, for one, although I am a big fan, am very glad for that.
Thank you very much, Darren. Now that we know T Swift isn't in the building, I wonder if these people are overthinking and questioning their Travis Kelce bets on anytime touchdown, first touchdown. If you're watching Action Island, you know that these guys are looking at Noah Gray over his receiving yards. Didn't make the parlay, but that's the fun thing you can add and make your own. Here is our Monday night Super Bowl rematch parlay that you can go and bet on FanDuel Sportsbook. We're going DeAndre Swift over 60.5 rushing yards, sticking with the under trend. Second half under 22.5 total points, and AJ Brown under 84.5 receiving yards. So that the guys are looking at a kind of run the ball game, wet weather, keep it on the ground. That's how you defend these teams. Charlie, Anthony, Grant, do we have a good one here? How are we feeling?
It's correlated.
It's correlated, right? This is okay. Since we didn't add it in the parlay, you guys all like the game total under 45.5, or what are the thoughts on that?
I do not personally.
Anthony's off, but I think we're on it.
Yeah,
okay,
I'm a bit mixed. I'm like scared because it's what 11-1 to the under. It's one of those things that I'm like afraid to hop on the bandwagon now because the second I do it, like every game's gonna go over. But I tend to think that based on the second half, it'll go under. Yeah.
That was me with the AJ Brown 2 weeks ago. I hopped on the train against the Cowboys, and that was, of course, when the streak ended. Okay, so the guys are looking at DeAndre Swift under 60.5 or over 60.5, Brown under, and then the game or second half under 22.5. You parlay that together, it's +446. Go and make your bets on FanDuel. Charlie, Anthony, Grant, thank you very much. Good luck Monday Night Football. We'll see you here next time on Action Island.